Welcome to the second Yoga for Stressful Times practice. I thought we would begin with a classic breathing practice or breath awareness practice that is for stress, for insomnia, is an enticement towards relaxation. All right, so maybe at the end of the practice you can ask yourself, I'll remind you to ask yourself, do I feel quieter? Do I feel more at ease? Okay, so please begin by just feeling your body settling into the floor. You can simply focus on the sense of the body settling into the floor. Sometimes it's nice to connect to the breath and work with a very simple rhythm. Breathe in, I feel myself breathing in. Breathe out, I feel my body sinking fully, completely into the earth, the floor. Breathe in, I'm aware of breathing in. Breathe out, I'm aware of breathing out and settling. So this means that you're following the sense of your breathing and you're following the experience of resting in your own breath rhythm. Your breath rhythm is the correct breath rhythm. How fast, how slow your breathing is. That's completely dictated by your body. Another thing that might be nice to notice is that your body literally has two sides or two halves. Right? So breathing in, I'm aware that I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I'm aware that the two sides of my body are resting and settling. Two arms, two sides of the rib cage, two sides of the pelvis, two legs, 2 feet. It can even be interesting to try to sense the two sides of your skull. One way I like to do that is to feel my two eyes resting. Okay. So we can pay attention to the reality of the body, or this is one reality of the body, that it is two-sided. And we can also tease this reality out a little bit more in order to guide ourselves towards a deeper relaxation. So please choose one side of the body. Doesn't matter if it's right or left, just choose one side. And just ask yourself to feel that side of the body resting or settling as you breathe out. Some people like to focus on the shoulder blade or the upper back and the arm on that one side. It's a way of kind of getting going with this. Right? So as I breathe in, I'm aware I'm breathing in, and as I breathe out, I rest the upper back and the arm on one side of my body. And just notice how that feels. Really feel your body breathing and resting on this one side. Now you can stay with the shoulder girdle on the one side and the arm on that side, or you can experiment. It's like you take a little journey through your body. You can experiment with spreading your awareness out a little bit more on that one side. Some people like to turn their head a little bit towards that side. Sometimes that happens spontaneously. And it's as if you're turning your head, you're having a little look at the side that you're encouraging to rest. And again, see if that helps you to feel this experience a little bit more clearly or fully. Okay. And then just take a few breaths to be aware of and experience both sides of your body, resting during your exhalation. It can be kind of interesting when we come back to two sides. Sometimes the two sides feel a little different from one another. Whatever you're experiencing is correct. Okay. And then just literally slide your attention over to the other side, your second side. And we could say you have two options. One option is to just be interested in being present in as much of that side of the body as possible. Feel as much of this second side of the body resting during the exhalation as is possible for you. Or maybe you want to hone in a little bit and just really feel the one side of your upper back and the one arm. As I breathe in, I feel the experience of breathing in. As I breathe out, I feel the experience of breathing out and resting one side of my body. And then it's as if you just change your mind. Oh, now I'm going to try to feel my whole body. Or you might define it as both sides of the body as you exhale, each time you exhale. So staying with feeling, staying with awareness of the body helps to de-stress the body, but it also helps to de-stress and focus the mind. As we feel that we're breathing in, and we feel that we're breathing out, and we feel the two sides of the body resting, we are doing what is our birthright, which is connecting body and mind. And there's nothing to worry about if your mind wanders off. You just come back. There's another breath. There's another breath to follow. to feel. Okay, so take a few more breaths on your own. Stay with sensation. Stay with awareness. Stay with your breathing. And then when you're ready, please begin to move a little bit. So I'm going to think about and work with, we could say, helping to de-stress the bottom half of the body, the lower half, from about below the rib cage down to the toes. But anytime we work with one portion or one area of the body, there is a global effect. The whole body actually is part of the experience. So our focus, our lens will be on the lower half of the body, but the whole body will likely respond. Okay? And we'll be thinking about shedding what's called postural stress or postural anxiety, which is simply the tendency of the soft tissue to hold on to tension after the mind or the body has gone through something difficult, right? So I go through a difficult moment, and then instead of shedding the tension that the body picks up, I hold on to it. Why the body does this is a long story, but let's just say that it does do this. So our interest or our job today is to try to shed some of that postural stress or postural anxiety in the lower half of the body. All right? So please start with feet wide on your mat, very wide on your mat, and let your knees fall from one side to the other. One side, drop all the way to one side so that you feel that gravity takes your legs become heavy, and then you slip your legs over to the other side. Right? So you'll go back and forth, maybe initially go back and forth just at any pace that feels comfortable to you. Right? So that may vary wildly from individual to individual or day to day. Sometimes I like to go extremely slowly, as if there are, billions of grains of sand inside of my legs, and I'm trying to shift one grain of sand at a time. On the other hand, sometimes I like to just waft from side to side relatively quickly and almost jostle my body from side to side in the twist. Right? So ask yourself, what's the right pace? So we're thinking about the legs. We're thinking about the legs floating, dropping, wafting from side to side. And of course, this is creating a little soft twist. And it's releasing the front of one leg, in particular, the thigh, the hip socket, and then the front of the other leg. Right. Now, if I wanted to encourage a little bit more release of postural tension through my whole body, I could explore bringing my arms overhead as I'm doing this. Right. And really, this is all about feeling what is happening as it is occurring in real time. So what does it feel like as I bring my arms overhead? Right? How does this twist? How does the whole body feel? And then what does this twist feel like if I bring my arms back down towards my sides? Yeah, could be as simple as, do I have a preference right now? Or yes, one arm up, one arm down. Right, so the focus, we could say the highlight here is on releasing what feels like the top leg, the hip socket that's stretching, and all the way down through that thigh and around the knee. Right? But there's a generosity in the body, and this release is distributed all the way down to the feet and possibly all the way up through your face, your skull, your armpit, your fingertips. It's fantastic, actually. Yeah? The partner pose or counter pose that is very sweet to do with this one is little boat, right? So you just gather your legs in. And now the highlight for release is in the lower back, in the back of the pelvis, right? And some people like to just draw their legs in and breathe. Again, something to feel for. Do I have a preference for my legs just simply parallel, or maybe I like them a little wider? Maybe that actually feels more comfortable. Legs a little bit wider. Can I rest my lower back or the back of my pelvis a little bit more? Maybe you like both and you want to go back and forth. Simple parallel legs, wide parallel legs. And of course, there's that beautiful version of little boat where you circle around a little bit, you circle your legs, and that helps you to release the back of the pelvis using weight shift and massage, a little bit of rocking. Yeah, and as I'm watching the people who are with me practicing, there's a little bit of rocking of the legs from side to side, and maybe that spontaneously causes a little bit of rocking of the head from side to side. Right? So again, my intention is to release the back of the pelvis, but my legs are releasing. I get release up towards the skull, right? And so that postural tension in the body is just being shed, one cell at a time, one movement at a time. Okay? And then one other little partner pose right now. I'd say lengthen your legs up towards the ceiling, and your knees can be slightly bent. Right? So you want your legs to feel super comfortable, really easy. And then rock a little bit from side to side here, right? And it's individual. You might want to touch your knees. You might want to hold on behind your knees, whatever actually suits you, right? And this is a way of directly releasing some of the tension that is accumulated through the back of the leg. If this feels like it's too much, right? You are right. If it feels like it's too much for your body, maybe bend one knee more fully. So you have a very long leg and you have a bent leg, right? And then, of course, you would swap. Okay? Right? And then at some point, again, go back to that twist we did at the beginning. Put your feet back on the floor, nice and wide. If you remember which arm position you preferred, set your arms there, overhead or wide, or one up and one down, and let your legs rock from side to side. Now, the one additional little piece I'd add here is if you want to take a few breaths with your legs dropped to the side, every time you exhale, think about your legs falling just a little bit more fully into or towards the floor. Right? So we almost loop back to our meditation from the beginning. I breathe in and I'm aware of breathing in. I breathe out, I'm aware of breathing out, and my legs are falling or grounding or dropping just a little bit more. Right? And how many breaths you take on each side, again, is up to you. Right? So maybe go back and forth a few times, and then when you're all done with your twisting, perhaps gather your legs into a little boat, or just rest in the middle with your feet flat on the ground. Again, ask yourself, what feels better? You're in charge. Yeah. And if you don't like the position you're in, just change it. Change the position you're in until you feel comfortable. Great. There's no reason why both legs have to be long or both legs have to be bent. When I choose to rest and breathe, right, I can be in a symmetrical or asymmetrical position. It's the quality of the resting and the experience as I assess it that's important, not the shape. All right. I'm going to continue to focus on releasing the front of one leg, one hip, down the front of the hip, over the knee, maybe even down towards the foot. So leave one leg on the ground long and draw the other leg towards you. Draw the other leg towards you as if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to draw this leg towards little boat. And then decide if holding behind your knee or on top of your shin is better for you, right? Take a few breaths here. You can jiggle the leg you're holding onto. You can rock it a little bit from side to side. You can circle the leg you're holding onto. And it's an interesting thing. We're putting a lot of attention on the leg that's moving, but actually the deeper release may be happening on the front of the long leg, right? So one nice practice is to move the leg you're holding onto, circle it, rock it, jostle it if you like that feeling of kind of, yeah, that's it, yeah, jostling the leg a little at the hip. And then just take a breath or two and focus your attention on the long leg, right? So I feel myself breathing in, I feel myself breathing out and resting that long leg. It's huge and heavy. And as I rest it, I may start to lose quite a bit of unneeded tension on the front of that leg. Okay, so the simple invitation is to move and then rest. Move the leg that's bent, and you can switch legs when you're ready. Move the leg that's bent, circling, jostling, rocking. And then you rest. And you feel yourself breathing, and you feel yourself coordinating the exhalation with the heaviness of that long leg on the ground. Now, one little trick, if you like, it's like a little mental trick. When I go to think about and feel that long leg resting on the ground, I might focus my awareness on the weight of the heel. Right? So I feel the out breath, and I feel that heel sinking. Right? And it's actually just going with the reality of your anatomy to do that. And by that I mean the heel bone is tremendously dense and heavy. It's directly in contact with the ground in this position, whereas much of the back of your leg is not, right? So if I can feel the weight of my heel bone, that's it, Kathy, yeah, tapping it a bit, yeah, where is it? If I can feel the weight of my heel bone really sinking, like into sand, yeah, then the heel bone literally speaks to the leg and invites the leg to release, and then I might, again, get that deep, deep relaxation on the front of that thigh and in that hip socket. Okay, right, so that's some of the theory around why this simple activity might be helpful. When you're satisfied with the two sides, again, draw your legs into the chest, so into little boat, right? And again, you've got choices here. My legs come directly towards me, or maybe I prefer to have them a bit wider because that just, for whatever reason, just feels more right. I might be in relative stillness and breathe. I might rock a little or circle a little. Good. Great. All right. Now there's one more posture on the back that is tremendously good for, again, releasing front of the hip socket all the way down the fronts of the legs, and that is bridge pose. Okay, so please plant your feet on the floor, and yeah, that's it, Jigna. Move your feet a little bit, you know, maybe move them a little closer to you. Ask yourself, do my heels feel really heavy? Or move them a little farther from you. Yeah, wiggle your feet around as if you're trying to understand the mat with your feet, like your little monkey. Yeah. Yeah, so what you're feeling for is, where do my feet feel most settled, right? Or if you were playing a game with yourself, if you were imagining you were going to stand up from this position, where would your feet need to be, right? You need good contact with the ground, okay? And then we can try out bridge pose, and that's plant my feet as I exhale and roll through the back. Yeah, and then roll back down. Okay. Now, what I'd invite you to notice, I'm sure many of you, know this, but really notice and feel as you plant your feet and roll through your back, notice what happens to your hip sockets. Right? We could say they flatten or lengthen. Yeah. And then as you roll back down, your hip sockets start to fold. Right? And then by the time your pelvis is all the way on the ground again, you could remind yourself to just let those folded hip sockets soften, let go. Right? So I plant my feet, I roll up, and I get this long, lovely diagonal from my knees all the way into the belly, actually. And the hip sockets are flattening and lengthening. Just feel that. That's stretching. That's the release of tension on the front of the hip. Yeah. And then as you roll back down, notice how that hip socket really changes. It folds, it lets go. And then when the heavy pelvis is fully on the ground, you have this tremendous opportunity, which is to let the hip sockets totally soften. Right? Now, Jigna's putting her hands on the front of her hips. She's resting them there. So that's a really great way to feel the change of shape in the hip socket. Kathy was sliding her hands down the length of the thigh when she was in bridge. That's a way of reminding the body that the thighs and the soft tissue in the thigh is releasing and lengthening. Yeah, so hands just resting on the hip socket or fingertips resting on the hip socket. Or if you like, sliding your hands along the leg. Right? These are all ways to, again, feel with your hands what is happening. There's one other thing that's happening here, which is it's possible that there's breath movement in the hip socket. It sounds a bit odd, but it's because we can breathe and create a lot of breath movement in the belly and the low belly, the hip socket is really adjacent to the low belly. So with your hands or your fingertips on the hip socket, or even without, you might be able to feel breath movement all the way down into the hip socket when you're resting, when you're in bridge pose. Yeah. Even just thinking about allowing breath movement into the hip is a way of functionally releasing tension there. All right, so if you're done with bridge pose, you can rest a bit. You might want to lengthen your legs back out on the ground or up in the air. If you'd like to do one or two more bridge pose undulations, because really that's what bridge pose is. It's an undulation in the hip socket, in the spine. You can do that. Yeah. Great. All right. Yeah, and then simply lengthening your legs out on the ground gives a very soft, gentle elongation. We could call it just an elongation of all of those powerful hip muscles that affect the front of the leg and the front of the hip socket. Right? And interestingly, if you bring your arms a little higher, so maybe diagonally off of your shoulder joints, or even overhead, right? You are creating more length in the front of your hip socket. You might be able to feel that. Yeah. Feels different often in the front of the leg if my arms are overhead or if they're down by my sides. And then I can, again, invite breath movement all the way down towards the hip socket or into it. Breathe in, I'm aware that I'm breathing in. Breathe out, I'm aware that I'm breathing out. And I'm aware that both sides of my body are resting. I can feel my heels sinking, and that helps to release my legs and release the tension that I want to shed. I don't want to hold on to it. I want to give it to the ground. Okay. Let's roll over onto the belly. If you roll over onto the belly. Great. All right. So the first question I think that's really important for us to ask ourselves when we lie on the belly is my lower back comfortable? Okay. Very important. If your lower back is not comfortable, or you think, this just doesn't feel quite right, you can fold a blanket and put it underneath your pelvis. Okay? Because the lower back being uncomfortable is an indication of tension. And if we're going to continue to release the front of the pelvis, which is continuous with that hip socket, we want to make sure the other side is comfortable too, which is the lower back area. All right. Please bend both knees and rock your legs a little bit from side to side. Right? And the legs can be, relatively close together. Sometimes it's nice to take the knees a little bit farther apart. And if you want to think of this as an experiment or a game, the experiment is how far can I comfortably rock the legs to one side, and then how far can I comfortably rock them to the other? Yeah. Right? So again, this is a gentle stretch of the front of the hip socket and down the length of the front of the leg. It's also a massage for the front of the leg. Right? All of which is going to help our cause of shedding unnecessary tension, particularly in this area of the body. Yeah. If at any point you feel like you'd like to change what you're doing, there are two options. You can lengthen your legs back out on the ground and just rest with long legs, or you can pull yourself right back to child's pose. Right? Child's pose, which is really like little boat. It's a way of creating a deep, deep fold in the front of your hip socket. Okay. Right? And this is going to sound very familiar. Your legs can be parallel, you know, about hip width apart, or your knees can be wider here, just like in Little Boat. Adjust the legs for your own comfort. That's it, Kath. Good. Right. And here again, I'm interested in feeling the soft folding of the front of the hip socket. Folding, 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 folding. Breathing in, I'm aware I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I'm aware that I'm breathing out and that both sides of my pelvis are dropping. That's it, yeah. As I breathe out, I'm aware that both sides of my pelvis are dropping and both hip sockets are softening and the fold is deepening. It's potentially, in theory, an endless folding of that hip socket. Okay. All right. Now, if you would like to come up on your hands and knees, as if you were going to do cat pose. In fact, you could do, you know, a couple ripples of cat pose through your spine, and then we're going to continue with this focus on the front of the leg. Just let your spine ripple. Maybe notice that the shape of your hip socket in the front keeps changing as you roll through your spine. Flexion and extension. Rounding and back bending. Yeah. Your hip is a ball and socket joint, and as you do this movement, this spinal back bend, spinal forward bend, the ball and socket of your hip is rolling, 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 right? And the more I feel that rolling in my hip socket, the more motion, the more release, the more shedding of tension. Okay. All right, so then one little suggestion, Jigna, you might have to come forward a little bit, is to lengthen out one leg behind you and just turn your toes under. Yeah, so turn the toes under, put them on the ground, and you could reach back through your heel, or you could imagine that you're creating a circle with your heel, circling around with the heel, which circles the leg, which circles your whole body, right? And with this one leg long, right? Again, we're particularly noting or encouraging release along the front of that leg, right? If you want to get, a little bit more into cat pose, you could leave those toes turned under and just ripple your spine a little bit. Just see if the cat pose movement is possible here. Yeah, maybe it feels a little smaller, right? But it's fantastic for the spine. It's fantastic for that, both of the hips actually. Okay, all right. And then maybe just rest in child's pose when you feel that you're finished with this side. Yeah, just rest in child's pose in order to give yourself a quiet place to feel the breath, feel the two sides of the pelvis dropping. Maybe the two sides of your body feel slightly different. We ask ourselves these questions to stay present, to stay with sensation. Okay. You decide when you're ready to lengthen the other leg back. Right? So the toes are turned under and the leg comes back, and initially the focus is on reaching the heel back, right? How does that feel through the whole leg if I just reach the heel back and that's all I'm directing my body to do. And then what does it feel like through the leg and the whole body if I start to circle that heel? Round and round and round and round. Right, so we could call this a circling motion. We could call this a circling massage. Yeah. Good. And then if it suits you, you might try out cat pose here in the spine. That's it, Jigna. Yeah, so the heel is reaching back. That's a means by which I'm actually speaking to the whole leg and lengthening the whole leg. And then I'm rippling through my spine in cat pose. Good, 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 good. Yeah. All right. And then child's pose again when it seems like the right time. Right? And if you prefer to lengthen your body out flat on the mat, just long, laying on your belly, that's another great option. How heavy can the two sides of my pelvis be each time I exhale? So there's an endless potential for dropping the weight of the pelvis. There's an endless potential for softening deeply into the hip sockets. Notice how your whole body feels. Great. All right. And then we're going to come up a little higher, kind of into middle space. What I'd suggest is you come to high kneeling, right? So all that is I'm on my shins, and I've come, it's almost like I'm standing up and I'm on my shins. Yeah. All right, and just place your hands on your hip sockets for a second. Your hip sockets, or your fingertips can be on your hip sockets. Your hip sockets are like they were in bridge pose. Right? If you come back down and put your hands on the ground again, could be like cat pose or could be like child. You fold in the hip socket, right? And if you bring yourself up to high kneeling, you're stretching, flattening, extending the hip socket, right? Right? And just as when we were on the ground, if you lift your arms overhead in any way, slide them overhead, you actually give the release in the hip socket another little boost. Yeah, great. All right. Now, there's a posture called gait. It's a bit unusual, but it's very good for releasing the hip socket. You leave one leg in high kneeling, and you take the other leg and you open it to the side. Right, so yeah, that's right. So you can have the knee bent. The leg that's open to the side can be bent. If you like to lengthen it out the way Kathy's lengthening it out, I suggest you turn the leg in, which means the toes point forward. Right, that's a little stronger. Right, so I personally like to start with the one where the knee is bent. So I've got two bent knees. Yeah, and I can move the foot around a little bit. The foot that is the one that's flat on the floor. I'm trying to figure out where the most comfortable position is, right? So sometimes I bring that leg a little farther forward, right? And then I breathe in, I breathe out, and I rest my pelvis and both legs towards the ground, right? You can lift the parallel leg, the arm on that side. You can lift that arm overhead. Right? That might be enough. Exhale, rest your pelvis, rest your legs. Right? Or you can tip right over towards the other leg as if you're having a little rest to the side. Right? But again, inhale, exhale, rest your pelvis, rest your legs. Right? Okay. And then you're going to want a little break. So circle your hands back down towards the ground. You can shake one leg at a time, right? You could do child's pose again if that suits you right now. If you want to lengthen both legs in something like a standing forward bend or downward facing dog, that can be done at this point. Yeah. But these are just all options to give both knees the ability to lengthen out for a moment. Okay? That's it. Good. Yeah. All right. And then come on back down to your mat and come back to that high kneeling. Right? So again, high kneeling unfolds the front of the hip. You might even take a second and see if you can feel some breath movement in your hip sockets. Great. All right. Then you're going to take that one leg to the side. Right? Again, maybe move that foot a little bit more towards in front of you to see if you feel a solid sense of that heel resting. You want to really be able to settle into that foot, settle into the shin of the other leg. Yeah, playing with the foot a bit, that's a great idea. Okay? And then the arm that comes overhead is the arm that's on the same side as the parallel leg, right? So that arm just comes sliding up in space. And when I exhale, my pelvis, my legs, my feet fall towards the ground. Yes, and maybe you tip over to the side. Yeah, so a few breaths in that way. Okay? So often people feel the front of the parallel leg, right? That thigh, right? That hip socket, extending, releasing. Yeah. When you're ready to come down to the ground, put your hands on the ground. Again, your options are shaking one leg at a time, child's pose. You can lengthen both legs, which would mean, yeah, you might do the down dog posture. Yeah. If you're feeling a bit tired, it would be very appropriate to just lie on your belly with your legs long. Yeah. So again, our goal momentarily is to give your knees the opportunity to lengthen out. That's it, Jigna. Yeah. It is interesting, actually, to come back to lying on the belly and compare how you feel now to how you felt, say, 5-6 minutes ago when you first tried this out. Yeah. Okay. You know what? As long as we're down on the floor here, why don't you draw one knee up towards the side, right? So you leave one leg long. There's that posture that's called rescue position. So you draw your leg up as if you're trying to bring your thigh towards your rib cage on that side, and you end up tipping towards the long leg, right? And that's good, right? You want to feel the body weight resting into the long leg. You want to feel your body weight resting into the one side of the pelvis a little bit more, and all the way up the entire length of that side of the body. Okay? So through your intention of simply feeling your in-breath, feeling your out-breath, and feeling that long side of the body settling, you are creating a tremendous amount of change. Right? So this might be the complete posture, the one we call rescue position. There is another option with this, which is to bend the knee of the long leg. Yeah, that's it, Kathy. Bend the knee of the long leg and just gently rock a little bit from side to side with that leg, ever so gently. Right? So again, we have stretch, weight, motion, and massage. Right? We're using many, many elements. The body has everything, all of this is available through movement, right, to create more freedom. Okay. Before you switch sides, just lengthen that leg back out and assess the weight, the length, maybe where the breath movement is in the body. Great. Right? And then switch legs, right? So you kind of cuddle that other leg up towards you. And sometimes there's a question of, how high do I bring the leg? You can experiment, right? So, but what you want, let's say, is if you bring that leg closer to you, you want to make sure you feel like you could fall asleep here. Yeah, that's the that's the assessment. I'm not working to be here in any way. Right? Or the degree of stretch is not such that it's disturbing me. It's just helping me. Right? So again, you bring your mental awareness to the long side of the body. As you exhale, you settle it from the toes to the leg to the pelvis to the side of the rib cage, all the way through your arm and even your skull. And you need not do more than this. If you want, you can create more stretch by bending the knee of the long leg. You can create massage and gentle motion by rocking that leg from side to side. Good. Sometimes when we do a smaller movement, we actually get deeper inside. That's a very intriguing thing to work with. So smaller can actually be deeper. And we can touch on tension that we've been holding for years because it's way inside the muscular layers. Okay. All right, again, when you're finished with this movement, if you're doing movement, lengthen the leg back out, right? And just assess what the sense of drop or weight is through the body. Length. Where do I feel my breathing? Can I stay with the roll of my breath? Great. Okay. All right, please tuck yourself onto your side and come to sitting. If you'd like to sit on a bolster, that would be, a good choice. If it's more comfortable for you to sit on a bolster. If at home, you need to grab a cushion off of your couch or a chair, it's quite convenient to do that. And when you sit on your bolster, just take a moment to literally play with the position of your legs, right? So, sort of classic sitting position for meditation, for yoga, is both legs crossed underneath you. And there is a reason for that, which is it gathers the legs right under the spine. But that might not be the most comfortable for me, right? So right now for me, for instance, one leg long and one leg bent is actually more comfortable. Some people like to sit with both knees bent and kind of hug or cuddle their legs. That's a child's pose-like or little boat-like position. Yeah, so when you feel like you've found the right experience in your legs in terms of comfort, we're going to go back to that breathing meditation that we started with. And I'll start to talk you through, feeling two sides of the body, feeling one side, the same meditation we did at the beginning. And all I'd encourage you to do is, if you find that you want to change your leg position or arm position, just do that. You're never wedded to one position. Okay. So I'd say as you start to settle in here, notice the weight of your hands wherever they happen to be on your legs. Maybe they're on your thighs, maybe they're on your knees. Feel your in-breath, feel your out-breath, and feel your hands heavy. With each out-breath, I'm trying to feel the weight of my hands. And it's as if the hands invite the arms to rest. Invite the shoulders to rest. That's it, Kathy. That was a huge release. The hands rest, the arms rest, the shoulders rest, and then my whole lower body can just fall towards the ground. All right, and then let's just choose one hand. Maybe even turn your head slightly towards that hand. And for a few out breaths, feel the one hand, arm, shoulder, or the one side of the body rest. Then bring your head back in the middle and feel both of your hands, both arms, both sides of your body resting as you breathe out. If at any time you find it challenging to stay with your hands, you could squeeze your legs just a little bit on the out breath, or make a gentle fist on the out breath. Just to stay present in the hands. Okay, and then turn your head slightly towards the second side. And again, your experiment is to simply rest the hand, the arm, the whole side on this second side as you breathe out. And so simple. Bring your head back in the middle. Breathe out. Feel the whole body. Feel your hand print on your legs. Okay, so please decide if it's best for you to continue to sit or to rest back to find the closure to your practice. And just take another breath or two and gently stretch. So what I'd suggest is just asking yourself if there's any particular movement that you find really speaks to you in terms of relaxing your body, coming into your body, feeling your body change. That might be the keystone movement that you use when you've accumulated stress. Right? And you know the answer. You know the answer far better than I do. Right? Thank you for practicing today.